Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another meal prep video. In today's video, I am so excited to try these recipes. For breakfast prep this week, I'm going to be doing cinnamon apple overnight oats, although my husband is referring to these as apple pie overnight oats. And then for lunch prep, I'm doing sloppy joe pasta. I just have a couple dinner kits to put together and no prep for snacks because the snacks I'm having this week just don't require prep. So if you want to see how I meal prep for my husband and I for the week, then stay with me. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Kristi and I'm planning us healthy. If you're new here, welcome. Like I said, my name is Kristi. I'm currently following the WW Blue program, but on my channel, I provide points for all three programs. I also give calories as well. I'd love to have you as part of the family by clicking the subscribe button. Also, make sure to click the notification bell so you're notified anytime I upload new content. I meal prep for my husband and I for the week, and when I say the week, it's really just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Later on in the week, we have something different. I just don't like to prep out farther than 3 days. And then I do DIY dinner kits where I'm putting all the ingredients in a bag and getting those ready for the week as well. So meal prep is different to everybody. Let me know in the comments what meal prep is to you. As you see me, I do a big meal prep every week, but you definitely don't have to do that. A lot of people don't even like to eat the same things each week, so keep that in mind. You don't have to do it this way. Any type of meal prep is meal prep. It could be just meal prepping one breakfast at a time, or just lunches, or maybe you're just meal prepping a day at a time. Maybe at nighttime, you're figuring out what you're gonna make only for the next day. Or maybe you're just chopping up fruits and vegetables for the week. All that is a form of meal prep, so just keep that in mind. So let me know in the comments what meal prep is to you. As always, all the recipes will be linked down in the description box below, as well as any of the items I use, like my meal prep containers, my scale, different items that I use will be linked as well. And finally, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like these type of videos. It really does help my channel. So with all that out of the way, let's get started with this meal prep. So this week for meal prep, I'm going to start with lunch just because the lunch takes a little bit more time than the breakfast. It does require some simmering, so while it's sitting there simmering for the couple times, I'm going to actually move on to breakfast. But for you, I'm going to have the clips put together so that each recipe is in its own spot, so that way it'll be easier for the timestamps below. For this one, this is an Emily Bites recipe. This is turkey sloppy joe pasta. So the points on this are 7 points for green, 5 for blue, and 1 point for purple if you use whole wheat pasta. I'm not using whole wheat pasta, so if you are on purple and you're just using regular pasta, then you just follow the blue points at 5. And the calories on this are 359 calories. So what we need for this recipe is 2 pounds of 99% lean ground turkey breast. We also need 2 tablespoons of McCormick Montreal steak seasoning. We need 2 medium carrots, which I actually have 2 pretty large carrots here. Also 8 ounces of white mushrooms, 2 medium yellow onions, 3 garlic cloves, 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire. We're also going to need 3 cups of water, which this is actually only 2, so I'll add another cup to that. 2 cans of tomato sauce, 1 can of petite diced tomatoes, 1/4 cup of tomato paste, 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. Normally when I use brown sugar, I use the Lakanto sweetener, but I'm just going to use regular brown sugar in it this time and go exactly with the point. Since it's only 1 tablespoon, so I'm going to go exactly how her recipe has it. Also 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, which I don't have any cayenne pepper, so I'm going to use 1/8 of a teaspoon each of paprika and red pepper flakes. Finally, 12 ounces of pasta shells. I'm just going to use these little mini macaroni shells. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is just take a Dutch oven or just like a big soup pot. This is basically going to be kind of like a 1-pot meal. So I've sprayed the pot with cooking spray. Now I'm just going to dump my turkey in there. I have my burner on medium. And just kind of break that apart. And then we're going to add the 2 tablespoons of the steak seasoning. And just mix that up. so now we're just gonna let that sit there and start cooking. Now what I'm gonna do is mince up my vegetables. So she says that we need the carrots minced, the mushroom minced, the onions, and the garlic. So if you have a food processor, you could mince them in there. I'm gonna be using my Chef's Rival chopper. I can usually get everything pretty small using this. So there you go. I can usually get it pretty good with that. So for now, until the turkey's done cooking, I'm just gonna put everything in a bowl. So I'm gonna go through and get the onions, mushrooms, and garlic minced up. Okay, then just kind of mix that up just a little bit. So if you ever want to sneak some vegetables into your kids' meals, this is the way to do it. So I'm just going to set that aside now until the turkey's done. So while my turkey finishes cooking, I'm just gonna get the rest of the ingredients together. So I'm just gonna get my cans open, and then we needed 1/4 cup of tomato paste. So I'm just gonna measure this out. So if you have not seen tomato paste in a tube, this is like, I think the best thing I've ever found. I only found it maybe a couple years ago, and I always bought like the cans of tomato paste, but I never needed the whole can for some recipes. So I always ended up wasting it. So this way I can just get it in the tube and just get out whatever I need. All right, so 1/4 cup of that. And I'm just gonna get my cans open and get those ready. Okay, after the turkey is cooked through, now just add all those vegetables. And then we're also gonna add the 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar and the 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire. And then just stir that all together. All right, so now we're just gonna let that sit and cook for about 5 minutes. Okay, after that has been cooking for about 5 minutes, now we're gonna add the rest of the ingredients. So to that, we're gonna add the 3 cups of water, the 2 cans of tomato sauce, the diced tomatoes, the 1/4 cup of tomato paste, the tablespoon of brown sugar, and then the cayenne pepper. If you're using cayenne pepper, like I said, I'm going to use, instead of a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, I'm going to use 1/8 of a teaspoon of red pepper flakes and 1/8 of a teaspoon of paprika. All right, now just stir that all together. So now I just turned my heat up to high. We're gonna bring this to a boil, and then once it gets to a boil, then reduce the heat to low, cover it, and let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes before we add the pasta. All right, so that has come to a boil, so now I'm just gonna cover it, reduce the heat to low, and let it sit and simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so now that that has been simmering for, it's been about 17 minutes now, so I'm gonna get my pasta ready because this is gonna go in there now, and then we're gonna let it simmer again for about 20 to 25 minutes. So this recipe calls for 12 ounces of shells, and these are 7-ounce bags, so I have 14 ounces here. So I'm just gonna take out 2 ounces. I'm just gonna put it in a little baggie here. The good thing is a 2-ounce portion is good for a single portion. So if I ever just wanna make some single portion of pasta with some sauce and maybe some vegetables, then I know I already have that measured out for the 2 ounces. Okay. So there's the 2 ounces. I'll put that in my pantry and I'll have that for another meal. All right, so now I'm just gonna add my pasta and give that a stir. And I will tell you, this smells really good. Okay, now the top's going back on it, and now it's gonna simmer for another 20 to 25 minutes. So once this is done simmering this time, when it's done, we're gonna take it off the burner, remove the top, and then let it sit for about 15 minutes before serving. Since I'm gonna be putting this into meal prep containers, I'm probably just gonna let it sit and cool for longer than the 15 minutes. So now after that's been simmering, I've had it simmering probably about 22 minutes, and you just wanna simmer it until the pasta is done. So my pasta's done, just stir it up. I did already stir this together because I wanted to test to make sure the pasta was done. So that's it. That's done. Shut the burner off. I'm going to remove this from the burner. And if you were serving it now, you'd just let it sit for 15 minutes before serving it. So for me, I'm actually going to kind of let this cool down, and then I'm just going to portion it out into my meal prep containers. The serving size on this is a scant 2 cups, so just a little bit less than 2 cups. So that's going to be a pretty good portion. All right, so now I'm going to put my scant 2 cups into my meal prep containers. So it's going to be just a little bit less than 2 cups. So that's how much is going in there. That's a pretty good portion. Okay, I was actually able to add a little bit more because I did the 6, and then remember I told you there'll be 2 extra. So when I actually portioned it all out, I had a little extra, so I was able to put a little bit more into each one. So that's gonna be our lunches this week. Okay, moving on to breakfast. For breakfast this week, I'm gonna be making cinnamon apple overnight oats. So I'm combining 2 different recipes. I'm gonna use kind of a modified version of my cheesecake overnight oats. Basically, they're not gonna be cheesecake. I'm gonna remove the cheesecake pudding. I'm not gonna be putting that in there. So I'll be putting all the other ingredients in there. And then for the topping, I'm gonna be using an Emily Bites recipe, another Emily Bites recipe. This is Stovetop cinnamon apples. So I'm gonna cook these cinnamon apples first, and then I'm gonna lay them over the oats. So if you make her recipe exactly the way she does it using regular brown sugar, then it's 2 points on all programs and 150 calories. I'm gonna be using Lakanto sweetener, the monkfruit sweetener. So that's gonna lower it down to 1 point on all programs and 98 calories. So for the entire breakfast, it's gonna be 5 points on blue and green, 1 point on purple, and 270 calories. Now the only other thing I'm doing with this is her recipe makes 4 servings. I'm gonna be making 6, so I'm just gonna increase each of the ingredients by 50%. So for this week, I'm gonna use these Pyrex bowls. Usually when I make overnight oats, I do them in mason jars, but I really want to have more room to put those apples because it's gonna be about a ½ cup of apples on the top. I'm gonna do the apples first since those are gonna need to cook on the stove, and we're gonna have to let them kind of sit for a little bit. So I'm gonna take 1½ tablespoons of this Land O'Lakes light butter and also 1½ tablespoons of water, and I'm just gonna put them in my pan here on my stove. Now I'm gonna get my apples peeled and sliced. All right, so it cut me off. All I did was switched pans because that other one was kind of small. So now I've just poured my apples in here with the butter. Just coat the butter all over all of the apples and then let them sit, and they'll cook on medium heat for about 4 to 5 minutes, just until they're tender. So now take the cornstarch and water, mix those together. So like I said, for mine, I'm doing 1.5, so I'm actually going to be using 3 teaspoons of cornstarch, and then the recipe calls for 1/3 cup of water, so I'm just going to use 1/3 and then fill this again halfway. And then just mix that together real well. Okay, so after the apples are softened a little bit, now add the cornstarch and water. And then the brown sugar, which, like I said, it calls for 2 tablespoons. I'm going to be using 3. And then it calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. So there's the 3/4, and then I'll just put in another. There we go. And then just mix that until it's all mixed together, and then just cover it. And then after it's covered, we're going to reduce the heat to low and let it simmer for about 3 to 4 minutes. While the apples are cooking, I'm going to put my oats together. So all we're going to need for these is 1/2 cup of oats, 1/2 cup of unsweetened vanilla almond milk or regular almond milk. You don't have to use the vanilla flavor. In fact, the kind I have is not vanilla flavored today. Also, 1/2 teaspoon of brown sugar replacement. Again, I use the Lakanto, and the amount you use in that is up to you. I sometimes use a teaspoon in mine. Then we're also going to need a teaspoon of cake batter extract. If you can't find this, you can get it on Amazon and also at Walmart. And if you don't have it, you can surely use vanilla extract. Also, a tablespoon of Maple Grove Farm sugar-free syrup. And that's all that's going to go in these. So normally I have a funnel because I usually put these in mason jars, but this is going to be a lot easier this way. So I'm just going to go through and put all these ingredients into the bowls. So now once the ingredients are in there, then just kind of mix them up. You don't have to stir them real hard, just mix it until everything's mixed together. So now once the apples are cooled down, they'll just lay nicely over the top. And then these will go in the fridge, they'll sit overnight, and we'll just eat them cold the next day. Okay, so now look at those apples. Those look so good. I did end up adding another tablespoon of the monkfruit sweetener, so that's totally up to you how sweet you want it. I wanted mine a little bit sweeter, and since it's 0 points, I went ahead and added that. So I'm not sure where I lost the video earlier, but I know I had lost you sometime around where I poured the apples into the pan, so I did switch pans. That other pan was a little bit small, so I switched it to this bigger pan. So now what I did is just let these cool down. And then while those were cooling, this thickened up a little bit because I didn't want the apples to kind of fall into the oats. So I just kind of want it to sit on top of it. So now I'm just going to carefully just put a little bit over each one. Or I shouldn't say a little bit. It's going to be about 1/2 cup on each one. All right, y'all, look at these. Oh, they look so good. Now, here's the thing. Normally with overnight oats, I eat mine cold. I don't heat them. I'm thinking with these, I'm probably going to heat them a little bit. I think I may heat these for maybe just like 20 seconds, maybe 20 to 30 seconds. I think what I'll do is take them out of my fridge and just let them sit and get room temperature for maybe about 15 minutes. And then I may put them in the microwave for about 20 seconds. And then I'll kind of see how they are, because I do want the apples a little bit warm. I think that would be really good. But you definitely could eat these cold. So there you go, cinnamon apple overnight oats. Okay, moving on to dinner kits. For dinner kits this week, I just have 2 of them to do. So if you're new to my channel, I just do DIY dinner kits. Just put all the ingredients into a dinner kit and not washing them or chopping them or anything like that. I'm not doing like a meal prep with these. Just basically portioning them out, so I already know all the ingredients are in there ready to go. And typically when I do my dinner kits, I just make enough for 2. So in each kit is just 2 portions, one for me, one for my husband. I love it because it's portion control. Everything's already portioned out, weighed out, measured out for me, and there's only 2 portions, so I can't overeat. So I have 2 of them that I'm putting together this week. This one is garlic herb pork tenderloin with roasted potatoes, carrots, and gravy. If you'd followed me for any amount of time, you may know this is one of my husband's favorite dinners. So for this one, it's 9 points on blue, 6 on purple, 12 on green, at 388 calories. And that's just because we do 6 ounces of potatoes each. So you definitely could back off of the potatoes if you're on green and you wanted a little bit less points, or blue. But that's how much we put in it. So in here, I have about 8 ounces of carrots. And then in the bottom of the bag there, I have some potatoes. I have about 12 ounces of potatoes in there. So I've already weighed those out. So I just go through my ingredients and just see what can I do to save time throughout the week. So I already have my carrots and potatoes weighed out. I have those in the bag. I have my 10 ounces of pork tenderloin. So usually when I put my meat in there, it's frozen because I had just taken it out of the freezer. But this pork tenderloin, I actually just portioned these out. So this is not frozen. So that's fine because we're actually going to be eating this one tomorrow night. So for this week, I do not have a salmon dinner kit to do. So normally I do salmon every single Monday night, but this week we're going to be doing it later in the week. So we're probably going to be doing salmon on Friday night. So I'm just doing 2 kits this week. So back to this one. The other things I'm going to need is a garlic clove, some chives, which I'm just going to use some regular fresh green onion, and stone ground mustard, olive oil, and pork gravy. So I'm going to use a half a cup of this pork gravy. Usually what I do is take a container and I measure out a half a cup, but I cannot find the containers that I usually use for that. So I'm just going to set this aside. So I'll just be doing a half a cup. So I'll just throw a half a cup into a pan on the stove or even into a bowl and heat it in the microwave. And then my husband will get a 1/4 of a cup and I'll get a 1/4 of a cup. The garlic clove needs to be grated. So I'm just going to go ahead and grate that. And then I'm also going to measure out my stone ground mustard and my olive oil. So my olive oil, my stone ground mustard, my garlic, and my green onion will all get put together in a little container, and that's going to be the topping for the pork tenderloin. So just put the grated garlic right in there. All right, next I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of stone ground mustard and put that in there. Then I'm going to take a half a tablespoon of olive oil. Next thing we need is about a 1/4 ounce of green onion. So just mince that up real good. So then about a 1/4 of an ounce of green onion, so about a tablespoon. Again, the green onion though, that's completely up to you. You can play around with that. So now, let me just take this, just kind of mix that together a little bit. And then this is just going to go over the top of the pork. So the night I go to make this, the only thing I'm going to have to do, I cut my carrots and my potatoes up into kind of like French fry shape. And then those get put on a sheet pan. This is kind of like a 1 sheet pan meal. So those get put on a sheet pan, and then this gets put on the pork tenderloin. That goes on the sheet pan, and it just bakes. This is so easy. And then you just drizzle it with some of that gravy afterwards. So then that's done. That's one last thing we have to do the night that I get home from work. So that goes in there. My pork tenderloin goes in there. And then my gravy, which actually the gravy I'll leave out. The gravy won't go in the fridge with it. So that's it for that one. Okay, the other one I have is chicken parm with zoodles. So this recipe here is just for the chicken parmesan. All I'm going to do is put the chicken parmesan over the zoodles. I'm just going to make some zucchini noodles. If you've been watching me, you know I've been playing around with those a lot. So I thought this would be a good week since I'm having pasta for lunch. I figured this would be a good week to do the zoodles for dinner. So this one is going to be 4 points on blue and purple, 6 points on green, and 290 calories. That's just for the chicken parmesan. So the zoodles will be separate, depends on how much you use of that. Of course, if you're counting points, it would be 0 for your zoodles. I may add a little bit of olive oil when I'm sauteing mine though. I'm going to saute mine, but you certainly can leave your zoodles raw. You don't have to cook your zoodles. I just prefer to saute mine just because I have to be careful with raw vegetables. So if you're somebody who has to watch out for raw vegetables, then sauteing the zoodles works real well. So for this one, it's 2 5-ounce chicken breasts. I actually already have these chicken breasts portioned out and it's 12 ounce. So these are 6 ounce each, which is fine for me on blue because chicken breast is 0. So if you're on green or you're counting calories, just make sure to account for any additional chicken that you use. And then I've pretty much already put everything in this kit. So I have 2 zucchini. That's what I'm going to be using for the zoodles. So those will go in there. And then my chicken. So usually what I do is just lie these flat in my fridge, just like this, so that nothing is sitting, like when I'm showing you, I usually have them standing for when I'm doing meal prep, but when I put them in my fridge, I just lay them flat. And then I have my topping here. In here I have a 1/2 tablespoon of light butter. And then in here is 1.5 tablespoons of Italian breadcrumbs, 1.5 tablespoons of panko breadcrumbs, and 1 tablespoon of Parmesan cheese. And then I also need, I forgot my part skim mozzarella. So I'll get the part skim mozzarella out. I'll go ahead and weigh that out. 1.5 ounces of that. And also 8 ounces of Rotel diced tomatoes with chilies. This is a 10-ounce can. This just gets kind of poured over the top of it. This is where it's chicken parm with a kick. That's why it's called chicken parm. So if you don't like it with that spice to it, you can definitely just use pasta sauce or marinara, whatever you want. This, we just use this in place of marinara. So it just gets put over the top and then the cheese over top of it. This is an air fryer recipe, but it does have instructions for oven method also, so if you don't have an air fryer. Okay, so I just checked and I am all out of Polly-O part skim. So I do have some of this part skim mozzarella cheese in there. So I'm just going to do 2 slices. So basically I'll have 1 slice over each of our pieces of chicken. But as I always say, sometimes different cheese is different points. So always make sure to build your recipes into your own tracker using the brands that you use, because it could make a difference. So then that goes in there. And then the Rotel, which again, I won't keep this in there in the fridge. And I forgot I wanted to put a green onion in this bag for my pork tenderloin too. I'll just cut that up and put it over the top of it. So that's it for my dinner kits. And for snacks this week, I have nothing to prep. I don't have any fruit to wash this week or anything like that. For my snacks this week, I have a couple apples left, so I'll have some apples and PB2. And then I'm also gonna do my mixture of the sugar-free pudding, PB2, and Ready Whip. So that's all I'm gonna be doing for snacks or dessert this week. All right, y'all, look what my husband wanted. He wanted some fat-free Ready Whip on his overnight oats. He thinks that it's going to be like apple pie. But I think I should have waited and put it on there like the morning that he has it. But that'll be okay. It'll still be good. So let me know in the comments, are you more looking forward to trying this one or the lunch? I've tried both of them. They are both delicious. Of course, I haven't tried the apples and the oats mixed together, and I still haven't decided if I'm gonna heat mine or not. So when I edit this video, by the time this video goes up, I'll have already eaten these, so I'll pop up something on the screen and let you know what I ended up doing. So breakfast, and then the lunches, which I have 4 of them because one of them is for dinner tonight, and then our dinner kit, and then like I said, I don't have very much for snacks this week, just apples and PB2 and some pudding, Ready Whip, and PB2. So make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're new, I hope you'll subscribe. I'll talk to you in my next video. I'm Kristi, and I'm planning us healthy. Don't you know that